I've got no roots, but my home was never on the ground. I've got no roots, but my home was never on the ground. I've got no roots. I've got no roots. I've got no roots, but my home was never on the ground. I've got no roots, but my home was never on the ground. I've got no roots.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Hana Rahman Nabila, and I will be explaining about the introduction of Mexico City. First of all, Mexico, officially the United Mexican States, is a country in the southern portion of North America. Spanish is the de facto national language spoken by the most populations, making Mexico the world's most populous Hispanophone country. Mexican Spanish refers to the variety of the language spoken in the country, which differ from one region to another in sound, structure, and vocabulary. For the communication in Mexico, the Mexican communication style is expressive and emotional. It is accepted to show positive emotion in business. Mexicans will also interrupt each other or speak at the same time. It is also common to touch each other's wrist or upper arm while talking and to pat someone on their shoulders. Long silence, however, perceived as uncomfortable. People from other cultures sometimes feel that the Mexicans are very loud or even too loud. Furthermore, facial expressions and gesture reinforce the spoken word. Well, for the negotiation, Mexicans generally prefer to communicate verbally. They are much quicker to reach for the telephone or arrange a personal meeting than to write long reports. Negotiations once again demonstrate the importance of personal relation. Keeping verbal agreement is therefore also a question of honors. Nevertheless, agreements and negotiation results are recorded in formal document and contract. If these are official paper that must be processed through the Mexican regulatory bureaucracy, this process can be very lengthy. Mexicans also engage in an indirect style of communications when negotiating. Furthermore, the course of discussion in Mexican negotiations often seem chaotic, barely based on fact, and not result-oriented to international business people. They get the impression that everyone jumps from one topic to another. This may have to do with the fact that the Mexican partners are seeking common ground and similarities. Controversial and conflict-laden issues are excluded from the discussion. Besides, a direct no is considered rude. Instead, people will say that they will look at something again or see what they can do. Or the subject may change without comments. In countries with a direct style of communication, silence tends to be as consent, while in Mexico, it tends to be rejection. Okay, and that is all from me. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabila, for your great explanation. Now, I will explain to you the tips of negotiation. So, one of the tips of negotiation that I have found is process of negotiation. Under the process of negotiation, I found three based on my understanding, which is attitude and styles, process of sharing information or sharing of information, and the last one is pace of negotiation. So the first one is attitude and style. I will explain to you. In Mexico, economic success is contingent upon relationships. Mexico implements distributive and contingent bargaining strategies. So both parties must agree in a business contract. They prioritize long-term advantage and demand long-term commitments from their business partner. Although Mexicans value long-term relationship, they negotiate in very competitive fashion. However, neither party should see competitive advantage initiative adversely. The negotiation procedure should be cordial and conflict-free. Culture facilities must gain. Exceptional and consistent individuals are awarded to respect, and you can negotiate based on the quality of your personal relationship. So, sharing of information is the second process that I have found. So, even when interpersonal ties are strong, Employees may be reluctant to provide information more openly or frequently. So numerous Mexicans are the opinion that access to sensitive information is advantageous for negotiating. Nowadays, or in today's dialogue-driven society, measures and statistics may be imprecise and hence misleading. When we talk about the process of negotiation, one of the important thing in process of negotiation is pace of negotiation. So, protracted negotiations are anticipated. To achieve success, you will require several journeys. Time is required for negotiations, building relationships, and making decisions. There are risks of failure and injury associated with rushing. With patience and composure, negotiate. Multitasker in Mexico, they function satisfactorily in talk subject regularly shift. So the strategy may confound, anger or frustrate Germans, Britons and Americans. Don't worry. Instead concentrate on development and consensus. If your opponents appear to be procrastinating, you should determine whether they are contemplating alternate possibilities or are unwilling to collaborate with you. To maintain relationships, Mexicans may say no. This could be a tactic to obtain concession or a sign of delayed decision making. Once again, intensity. Thank you. So the next part, I will pass to the next presenter, my friends Azazia.
Muhammad Ishaq for your explanation just now. My name is No Azazia binti Abdullah and my metric number is 62215121615. So I will continue with bargaining behaviors in Mexico. Mexicans can be extremely shrewd and tenacious negotiators. They are accustomed to tough bargaining and engage in a great deal of haggling. Unexpectedly, intense emotion and numerous exaggeration may accompany the procedure. The negotiation process can be lengthy. Although Mexicans may demonstrate an interest in new ideas and concepts, they frequently find it difficult to change their position. Requesting a compromise may turn into a matter of pride if presented improperly. Maintain courtesy throughout the negotiation process. Instead of insisting on concession, it may be preferable to revisit the disagreements in subsequent meetings, thereby allowing your counterparts to reconsider their position without losing face. Effective negotiators may be able to shape price by as much as 40% between the initial offer and the final agreement, allowing so ample room for concession at various stages. Always request reciprocation following an act of kindness. Maintain composure and courtesy throughout the process, avoid conflict, and frequently reaffirm the relationship. Although Mexicans generally prefer a straightforward negotiation style, they also employ deceptive tactics such as lying, sending fake non-verbal message, feigning distance in the entire deal or in individual concession, exaggerating the value of an item, and making false demands and concessions. To gain negotiating leverage, Mexican counterpart may play dumb or attempt to mislead you to their advantage. Because doing so could harm business relationship, you should not take such tactics personally and avoid lying to or grossly misleading your business partner. Even if you can see through a lie, it is a great personal insult to state or even imply that your counterpart may be lying. It is prudent to confirm information received from the local side through additional channels. Similarly, there are worries of external information. The tactics of good cop, bad cop is rarely employed by the Mexican, despite its effectiveness on both sides of the negotiating table. However, if the other side recognizes this as a tactic, the consequence could be catastrophic, and your team will need to exclude any bad cop members from future negotiation rounds. Mexican negotiators avoid overtly aggressive or antagonistic strategies. While they may use indirect threats and warnings or subtly demonstrate anger, they will avoid appearing aggressive. Extreme openings are rarely used because they can negatively impact the relationship. So exercise extreme caution when employing this strategy yourself. Never walk out or treated to do so in an aggressive manner, as your counterparts will likely interpret this as a personal insult, and it could result in the termination of all negotiation. Nonetheless, threatening a friendly walkout while emphasizing the importance of the relationship can be quite effective. Frequent defensive strategies employed by Mexicans include blocking or changing the subject, asking probing or very direct questions, making promises, and maintaining a rigid position. Corruption and bribery are prevalent in the public and private sectors of Mexico. Additionally, laws regarding bribery are less stringent than in many other countries. People may view small payment as incentive for completing a task or unofficial service fees rather than bribes. Also remember that there is a thin line between gift giving and bribery. What you may consider a bribe, a Mexican may view as a thoughtful gift.
Thank you, Azazia, for your explanation regarding the bargaining behavior. So let's continue with decision making. Most companies have very clear lines of authority and people expect to work within those lines. People at the same level in the hierarchy are expected to talk to each other, and you could lose respect if you spend a lot of time and energy on someone who was above you. Senior executives make decisions. They are often dictatorial, but they will always think about what is best for the group or organization. When making decisions, business people may not rely much on rules or law. Since Mexicans highly value institutions, personal feelings and experience usually weigh more strongly than empirical evidence and other objective facts do, even though both may be considered. Mexicans are often uneasy with change and reluctant to take risks. If you expect them to support a risky decision, you may need to find a way for them to become comfortable with it first. For instance, by explaining contingency plans, outlining areas of additional support, or by offering the guarantee and warranty. The first communication style is essence and disagreement. Many Mexicans speak indirectly because they prioritize connection. They rarely say no or critique or reject, unlike many other countries that communicate more directly. Many business from straight-talking countries try to get Mexican to say yes or no. This may embarrass your Mexican lover. Mexicans also say maybe a lot. It's not that simple, or I will look again. Maybe their response. This could signify no, even though it seems like what we call confirmation. Consider context while deciphering Mexican speech. Next, voicing criticism. Mexico forbids directly criticizing a business partner, employee, even in a meeting. Whether the criticism is deserved or presented is irrelevant. Before criticizing in Mexico, consider the hierarchy. They never criticize each other, but supervisor can. Employees never criticize their boss. Critique generally required only mentioning the issue. Criticism must also include positive and show that you value to the other person and their works. The last communication style is the small talk. Small talk is a big part of getting to know people and building the trust. At the start of every conversation, whether it is in person, over the phone, or through the email, the goal is to build the relationship. Then and only then the work issues and problem comes up. This is also part of being polite in Mexico. For example, show some pictures and tell them about yourself and try to remember the names of your conversation partner family. Then the next time you meet or talk on the phone, you will have a good place to start. Don't talk about anything that could ruin the good mood. This includes the criticism of the Catholic Church, the differences between the rich or poor, and crime and the drug mafia, or a lack of infrastructure and environmental problem. Last, that's all from me. Thank you, and I will pass to the Aisa to continue the next slide.
Thank you to Nurina Shah for her explanation. Okay, now I will continue my part. My part are conflict management in Mexico. Conflict should not be feared. It should be managed. is it the presence of disagreement or differences? Thus, as long as human beings are different from one another, we will always have conflict. However, having conflict does not mean we should be violent and loud. We can have different peacefully through mature conflict resolutions. For the first conflict in Mexico is the conflict scenes. In Mexican culture, which is more collective than American, emotions are more obvious. Therefore, competition and conflict can occur more frequently and become aggressive. Whenever possible, avoid competitions and conflict, and American manager can choose to be more ritualistic than competitive among team members. Next, for the second conflict is the gathering information. In Mexican culture, information is kept more secretly as it has emotional value. The relationship between an employee and the company is also more emotional. In American culture, an employee is emotionally independent of the company and information has a relative value. Next, for the third conflict is the agreement with the problem. In Mexican culture, is it important for an employee to agree with the leader? Thus, someone is responsible for a failure. In American culture, is it not important for an employee to agree with a manager and when there is a mistake? Often the system is to blame, not the person. For the fourth conflict is the solution finding activity. Culturally, most Mexicans tend to resist change and risk averse and fear failure. Americans are more likely to invite change, take a risk, and hope for success. Thus, Mexicans may appear more reserved, while Americans may look more welcoming. And the last conflict will be the negotiations of solution. In Mexican culture, loyalty is a favorable virtue, thus company rule should not be broken. This also means people are less ready to compromise in American culture. On the contrary, loyalty is seen as a relative virtue. Rule can be changed for valid reasons, and people are more prepared to compromise. And American managers who work in Mexico thus understand the extra effort that they must perform to resolve conflict peacefully. Understanding the whole state culture dimension theory and applying it in the 5 stages of conflict resolution is a good start. Combine it with good communications and interpersonal skill. Peace can be achieved with understanding whenever possible. Foster dialogue with team building and culture activities. That's all from my part. I will pass to the next presenter.
Okay, so in conclusion, communication in Mexico is somewhat indirect. People may prefer to be careful about what they want to say and how they say it. They might insist that everything is in perfect order, even when this is not the case, or give seemingly ambiguous answers such as maybe, I am not sure, or we will think about it when the message is no. As for yes, it may only mean that they understood what you said, not that they agree with it. It may take extensive and unmistakable questioning to find out whether you indeed have agreement. However, some Mexicans may get straight to the point when trying to get a message across. Silence is rare and usually signal that there is a serious problem. The communication often becomes more direct and franker once a strong relationship has been established. As for the bargaining, Mexicans can be very shrewd and tough negotiators. They are used to hard bargaining and often to do a lot of haggling. Surprisingly, strong emotions and many exaggerations may accompany the process. The bargaining exchange can be extensive. Concessions never come easily. Although Mexicans may show interest in new ideas and concepts, they often find it difficult to change their positions. Requesting a compromise may become an issue of pride if presented in the wrong way. Be respectful throughout the bargaining exchange. Rather than pushing the concessions, it may be better to readdress disagreements in follow-up meetings. An effective negotiator may be able to move prices by 40% or more between initial offers and final agreements. While for the bargaining, leveraging relationship is an important element when negotiating in Mexico. Nevertheless, Mexicans often employ distributive and contingency bargaining. While the buyer is in a superior position, both sides in business deal on the responsibility to reach agreement. They expect long-term commitment from their business partners and will focus mostly on long-term benefits. Although the primary negotiation style is competitive, Mexicans nevertheless value long-term relationship. Okay, and that is all from me and my group. Thank you.
Semakin ku kejar, semakin kau jauh, tak pernah lebih untuk dapatkanmu.